This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Walmart whiffs. The world's largest retailer reports a big earnings miss and says it has a lot working against it.
Total recall. Takata nearly doubles the size of its already massive airbag recall, making it now one of the largest consumer product recalls ever.
Cleaning up Wall Street after the Great Recession, new legislation and billions of dollars in fines. A new study shows little has changed. All that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Tuesday, May 19th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Herrera.
And I'm Bill Griffith. Tyler Matheson is on assignment right now. In fact, he'll be with us with a report a little bit later in the program. But we begin tonight with the results from Walmart and Home Depot, both, of course, barometers of consumer spending, which is a key engine of economic growth. And while the world's largest retailer reported sluggish sales, a drop in first quarter earnings, and a profit outlook for the current quarter below expectations, Home Depot had a solid quarter. The world's largest home improvement chain even raised its full-year forecast, as a matter of fact. The investors took notice on both, sending shares of Walmart lower by more than 4%, making it the worst performing stock inside the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Home Depot shares also fell despite the rise in its profits. Courtney Reagan has more tonight.
The world's largest retailer didn't have the world's greatest quarter. Walmart's first quarter profit fell slightly shy of analyst estimates. So did revenue and sales at U.S. locations open more than a year. The stronger dollar, higher wages, and job programs for employees, as well as investments in e-commerce, cut into Walmart's quarterly profit. However, that same-store sales metric is still growing, and traffic also came in positive for the second straight quarter. Still, analysts say Walmart has some work to do within the company, as well as balancing external factors.
When your business is driven more by grocery than anything else, grocery is more than 50% of the business now, you have to lead with a very compelling assortment of fresh food. And I don't think they're doing that as well as they could or should be doing, and others are.
But even if Walmart gets grocery right, there are bigger issues that Walmart and other retailers have to contend with.
There have been some structural changes in the way consumers spend money over the past year to two, and they're putting more of their disposable dollars into those other areas and spending less at traditional retail.
April's retail sales report and various earnings reports are showing consumers are spending, but on services and goods outside apparel retail, like dining out, digital downloads, auto-related sales, and home improvement, which helps to explain Home Depot's strong results. In contrast to Walmart, the world's largest home improvement retailer turned in a strong spring quarter, its most important season. Home Depot's profit, revenue, and sales at stores open at least a year exceeded expectations. CEO Craig Menear says a more normal spring across much of the U.S. and a continued housing market recovery are behind the successful quarter.
There's very much a macro piece to it. Housing's improving. That's driving better results at Home Depot. But Home Depot has been executing perfectly. So it's both internal and external.
Just as Walmart's problems are both internal and external. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
Thank you. Have a good night.
As the weather warmed up, so did home building. Housing starts rose to a 7-year high in April, a gain of about 20% from a month earlier. And that is the highest reading since November of 2007. The Commerce Department also reported that new applications for building permits, an indicator of construction in the coming months, increased about 10%. A bit later in the program, we'll take a look at the new technology that's getting home builders excited in drought-stricken California.
And that robust housing data are offering hope now for overall economic growth in the second quarter, following that weak start to the year. As Steve Leisman first pointed out, there may be a big problem with the way the government has been calculating first quarter growth, and now more and more economists are agreeing.
A big debate has erupted in the economic world over whether U.S. GDP is reported correctly. It's been sparked by a CNBC report in April showing first quarter growth has been persistently weaker than the other quarters over a span of 3 decades. The San Francisco Federal Reserve, which cites CNBC in its research, has taken a step further and says a correct seasonal adjustment of the data would put current first quarter growth at 1.8%, not the government's already reported 0.2%. The uncertainty over the first quarter numbers is prompting many economists to downplay the recent weakness and focus on other key economic data.
The employment data, which do not seem to have this residual seasonality, to me are sending us the right message. In other words, the economy is a lot better than the GDP numbers suggest.
Barclays also finds growth near 2% in the first quarter by using alternative seasonal adjustments. They say factors like fears over Europe or severe weather can explain some of the first quarter weakness, but they conclude that the first quarter shortfall, quote, is more systematic. Other economists blame residual seasonality for the weakness. Simply put, this means seasonal patterns that remain even after adjusting for seasonal patterns, which the government does when it reports GDP. In response to the CNBC story in April, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which compiles the GDP report, said it's studying the issue and hopes to announce changes in July.
If their seasonal adjustment process is inappropriate, which it seems to be, then we're reacting to data that's actually not really capturing the true underlying economy.
Meanwhile, economists at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors found weakness in the first quarter, but no evidence of residual seasonality. However, they only went back 10 years. Now, it could be that the first quarter is really weak, but the mounting evidence is that the weakness is overstated at least somewhat by something that's wrong in the government's data. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Leisman.
Well, that puzzling first quarter data was one of the topics being discussed at the Iconic Conference, which brings together influential entrepreneurs. It's an event series put together by CNBC, which produces this program, and Inc. Media. And Tyler Matheson was there.
Among the entrepreneurs I talked to was Mark Cuban, and I asked him about the controversy involving the GDP numbers and whether, from where he sits atop many businesses, he sees the economy as weak as the numbers portray it to be.
Well, when it's not so great, you look at your own numbers and compare them to what the macro numbers are. So, you have to take into consideration that GDP is macro, and whatever is happening there, hopefully we can counterbalance it with effort on our side. But when you see the number, it kind of sets expectations. So when we saw the 0.02, it was like, well, wait, are things slowing down? Does that impact other investments? So, my Shark Tank companies, I just want them to sell more. The Mavs, I just want them to sell more. But knowing now that the number reflects what it felt like, I think it doesn't so much change what the companies do, but it changes some investment theses, perspectives that I have.
Later this year, if interest rates go up, how will you react to that? Does it make a difference to you?
No. You're not going to bounce them 5%, right?
Right.
0.25%, 1%. The marginal cost to any of my companies, the marginal cost to the companies I've invested in, the stocks I've in, irrelevant.
And a lot of your businesses are not really capital intensive in that sense.
Well, even the ones that are, right? So the arena or whatever it may be.
Right.
The 1% isn't going to change how I do business. The 1% isn't going to change what do I invest in, and they're probably not going to move 1%.
One of the real subplots of the conference today were the questions about whether the tech market, most specifically, was overvalued, with NASDAQ at levels not seen basically since the year 2000, and we all remember what happened then. The general consensus is that this time it is different, that the businesses that are trading on the market, on NASDAQ and elsewhere, actually are real businesses with real revenues and real profits, and that is why many of them believe that this time it is different. Back to you.
Thank you, Ty. Kate Rogers spoke to some small business owners at the Iconic Conference about the challenges that they are facing, and she'll bring us that story a little bit later in the broadcast.
Meantime, to Wall Street, investors didn't exactly make any big moves today, perhaps as they await the minutes of the Federal Reserve's last meeting. Those are due out tomorrow. But today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average finished with a gain of 13 points to 18,312. That's another record. The Nasdaq fell by 8 after coming within 10 points of its closing high, and the S&P fell by a point, so no closing high there today.
Despite stocks sitting at or near all-time highs, global investors are cutting their exposure to U.S. equities to a level not seen since 2008. According to a Bank of America Merrill Lynch survey, more fund managers trimmed their equity holdings this month. The big reason? Less confidence in corporate profits. The survey also said investors are lowering their risk following the bond market sell-off and increasing their cash positions.
Well, the long-awaited settlement between banks and regulators over currency manipulation is expected to come tomorrow. According to reports, banks will plead guilty to charges that they manipulated the multi-trillion-dollar currency markets and pay billions to settle the matter.
3 Chinese professors are among a handful of Chinese nationals accused of economic espionage. The Justice Department accused 6 individuals of conspiring to steal sensitive wireless technology from U.S. companies, namely Avago and Skyworks Solutions. The companies develop technology often used by the military as well as consumer applications.
Airbag maker Takata has declared the airbags it made are defective in nearly 34 million vehicles, and as a result, it's announcing the largest auto-related recall ever. The faulty airbags have been associated with at least 5 deaths. Phil LeBeau has more on the story tonight.
It is a massive recall designed to fix defective airbags linked to 5 deaths and more than 100 injuries. Takata, a Japanese auto parts maker and one of the largest airbag suppliers in the world, has agreed to replace 33.8 million airbag inflators. The repairs will involve numerous models from 11 automakers, most of them built between 2002 and 2008.
Lives are at stake. It's our job to protect them, and so that's why we're doing what we're doing today.
The airbags being replaced could potentially shoot shards of metal when deployed. Exactly why that happens is still unclear. Humidity is believed to be a factor. Takata says repairs will initially focus on older vehicles in states with high humidity, but making millions of replacement airbag inflators and getting them into vehicles will likely take many years.
I think the big question is how long is this going to take? Nobody knows that yet. There is no question it could be some years.
By agreeing to a nationwide recall, Takata ends a long and costly battle with the Department of Transportation, but its legal problems are far from over. The U.S. Department of Justice is currently conducting a criminal investigation looking into how Takata has handled these airbag recalls. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
And still ahead, what has changed? After record fines and stringent new rules for Wall Street, a new report says not as much as you would think. A Tennessee man and his family raised almost $200 million for a cancer charity and then allegedly spent the money on themselves. A lawsuit was filed by the Federal Trade Commission and attorneys general in all 50 states and the District of Columbia against 4 cancer charities run by the members of the same family.
Instead of supporting patients battling with the ravages of cancer, the overwhelming majority of donations benefited the individual defendants, their family and friends, and the fundraisers they hired to solicit contributions. Defendants spent consumer donations on cars, on vacations, cruises, college tuition, gym membership, jet ski outings, sporting events and concert tickets, and dating site memberships, among other things.
The lawsuit alleges the charities violated both federal and state regulations.
Package delivery company UPS is going to pay $25 million to settle some allegations that it submitted false claims to the U.S. government. According to the court documents released by the Department of Justice, UPS covered up reports that it was late to deliver packages, keeping customers from being eligible for refunds.
And PayPal will also pay $25 million to resolve allegations it illegally signed up customers for unwanted credit products. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says PayPal made customers use its product instead of the payment method that they preferred. PayPal is the payments unit of eBay.
So a new study has found that bad behavior still exists on Wall Street. According to the New York Times, 34% of Wall Street professionals earning over $500,000 a year have witnessed or have firsthand knowledge of wrongdoing in the workplace. The co-author of this study joins us now to discuss the findings. He's Jordan Thomas, chair of the whistleblower practice at Labatt & Sucharo Law Firm and a former assistant director with the SEC Enforcement Division. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
What kind of activity are we talking about here?
Well, the survey looks at all forms of wrongdoing within the financial services industry. And our survey findings are particularly troubling. What we see is that Wall Street and Fleet Street appear to have lost their moral compass and aren't looking very hard for it.
You know, Jordan, after the 2008 financial crisis, there were a lot of regulations that were put in place. Supposedly, there were a lot of watchdogs and whistleblowers started to come forward a little bit. But you think that there are some confidentiality issues that are preventing people from actually reporting wrongdoing. Is that correct?
That's correct. One of the big surprises of the survey was that large percentages of financial service professionals have been asked to sign secrecy policies and secrecy agreements that expressly prohibit them from reporting wrongdoing to law enforcement authorities. These agreements are particularly insidious because they keep state, federal, and local law enforcement authorities in the dark about all forms of misconduct, whether it's corporate fraud, environmental crimes, or public safety issues. This is something that affects, when you're looking at over $500,000 income people, more than 25% of financial service professionals. So this is a significant law enforcement problem and one that the SEC and other domestic and international authorities are likely to be concerned about and wish to address.
Why do you think this is? I mean, I've been covering Wall Street for many years, and this has been a chronic problem for years, even now in the post-Dodd-Frank era, which admittedly contained a number of regulations. Now you're finding with this survey that they are still having problems trying to contain this kind of behavior. Why does this happen on Wall Street, do you think?
I believe at its core, Wall Street and Fleet Street have not established a culture of integrity where doing the right thing and speaking up about wrongdoing is the norm. People have reported in our survey that they feel pressure to engage in illegal and unethical behavior. They talk about their compensation plans, incentivizing them to engage in illegal behavior. And a surprising 25% admit that they would engage in illegal or insider trading if they could make $10 million and get away with it.
All right. Troubling numbers tonight from Jordan Thomas of Labatt & Sucharo. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
On a lighter note, the bargain-hungry consumer helped TJX companies post strong results, and that is where we begin tonight's Market Focus. The parent of chains like TJ Maxx and Marshalls reported a rise in quarterly sales as more customers visited its stores and the company expanded its offerings. TJX also hiked its full-year profit and same-store sales forecast. Shares rose almost 3% to $69.19. Red Robin also impressing investors with its results. The burger chain saw earnings rise almost 40%. On that, the company raised the lower end of its guidance for sales. Shares surged more than 15% to $84.14. Dick's Sporting Goods posted earnings that beat estimates, while revenue was just in line, but same-store sales rose less than expected. The athletic gear seller did hike the lower end of its full-year earnings guidance. Still, the stock was off 5% to $53.43.
Etsy delivered a big loss in its first report since going public. The online craft marketplace's earnings were well below estimates, while revenue was in line with consensus estimates. Shares were down as much as 19% in after-hours trading, but before the close, shares were up 2% to $21 per share. And the Food and Drug Administration has approved Johnson & Johnson's latest schizophrenia treatment. The drug maker says that the medication is the longest dosing interval available for patients with that condition. Shares were a fraction higher today to close at $103.96. And Computer Sciences announced plans to split into two. The company says it will separate its government-focused business from its commercial information technology unit into two publicly traded firms. It also reported earnings that slipped in its most recent quarter. Shares popped, though, on the split news following the closing bell. The stock was off slightly on the earnings news. Regular trade, it closed at $67.66.
The California drought is giving way to new technology for the home, and home builders are all over it. But will it be enough to keep the housing recovery rolling in that state that desperately needs some more homes? Diana Olick has some answers from Lancaster, California.
They look like two manhole covers on the side of a house, but what's going on underneath, an in-home water recycling system, could be at least part of the answer to how to save water in drought-stricken California.
Our mission is really to raise the water efficiency of homes to a whole new level. And there's really no way that you can do it the way we do it. And so I think it's just as important as solar panels, or maybe even more important than solar panels, because there's really no substitute for water.
It is brand new technology from Australia-based Nexus E-Water.
The system pulls in used soapy water from the house, like from the shower or the dishwasher, the laundry, not toilet water. It then pulls it through the system, cleans it, and the result is water that can be used for irrigation or for flushing toilets. The company claims it can recycle 2/3 of all the water used in your home.
KB Home just announced the technology will be standard in about 50 new homes in its new San Diego community. Developers like Emil Haddad say new technology like this will soon make drought a non-issue for housing.
We're going to see a much more surgical approach, and we're going to put together a plan that deals with water, hopefully once and forever. And, you know, we're going to see in 20 years that we're going to be talking about drought as something that we all can live through.
Haddad is behind a huge development in Irvine. The Irvine Water District actually recycles its own water through purple pipes in the ground.
Irvine has been way ahead in its thinking.
But there are 400 water districts in the state, and not all are so fortunate. With another year of drought predicted, builders are concerned the state will restrict new construction.
It's so hard to get your approvals in California already because of the traffic and the schools. And now the no-growthers are going to add water to the mix and just make it even more difficult to get your approvals.
That could lead to even higher home prices in the priciest state for housing. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Diana Olick in Lancaster, California.
Coming up, where small business owners find the secret to success.
Here's what to watch for tomorrow. Minutes from the Federal Reserve's April meeting are out. Lots of earnings, including results from Target, Salesforce, and Lowe's. And that's what's on the agenda for Wednesday.
And as the trade bill continues to make its way through Congress, the Treasury Secretary has a message for lawmakers. Jack Lew says he would advise the president to veto any trade bill that contains enforceable rules against currency manipulation. His comments, of course, push back against lawmakers who are intent on putting such rules in that legislation.
When it comes to starting a small business, it takes a bright idea and a lot of hard work. And many small business owners face a number of big challenges before they find success. Kate Rogers has more from the iconic conference in Chicago.
One of the things that we have been working on is the relationship between research, entrepreneurs, talent, money, and creating an environment in the city of Chicago.
From Silicon Valley to Main Street America, entrepreneurs are feeling decidedly more optimistic. But launching a business comes with some big challenges, including funding, growth, and acquiring talent.
Finding, the right salespeople, like I said, for sales, that can be very, very challenging.
Biggest challenge is actually that doing the right partnerships for the next step.
At the first ever iconic conference from Inc. and CNBC, entrepreneurs from around the country gathered in Chicago to hear from those who've taken the leap and made it big. Even the most successful entrepreneurs face headwinds when launching. Because having a great idea is one thing, but bringing that idea to life is an entirely different challenge. Mark Lawrence is the co-founder of Chicago-based startup Spot Hero. It's an app that lets users reserve parking spots in advance in cities across the country. Lawrence says he was surprised at how long it took to launch.
When we first started, we had this idea that everything was going to happen so much faster than it actually did. We thought we were going to launch the website and the app, and it took a really long time to do both. And so I'd say the biggest challenge was how long it actually took to get going.
Sharon Schneider is the co-founder of Chicago-based Moxie Jean. The company resells gently used children's clothing online. Schneider says her original business model couldn't get off the ground.
We had originally started as a little bit different business model, which was a subscription service. We got rid of the subscription service and went to a straight resale, and within 6 weeks we had 5 times as many customers as the old model ever did in 9 months. And so that's when we said, aha, I think we're onto something.
Just like Schneider, entrepreneurs here are also hoping for that aha moment. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Kate Rogers in Chicago.
Let's face it,
Good for
small
them.
business, that's where the job growth is in the economy
Absolutely.
right now.
It really, really is. And I give them a lot of credit because it's tough.
Yep.
Good luck. That does it for Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.